Shawn, do we need to pull the nails out of the trailer?
Well, of course you do. You also need to keep the winches away from your tires. So a lot of the freight that we haul does involve putting nails into the trailers to hold blocking in place. That can be a difficult thing to deal with. So I'm going to go through a few different scenarios with you and show you how to pull nails out of the trailer in different kind of situations. The first thing to consider is fresh nails versus old nails. Nails are always going to be easier to pull out while they're fresh and not rusty. So like on the day that you deliver the load, rather than letting them be embedded in the trailer and smashed down and rusty, they're going to be a whole lot harder to get out of there. The most ideal tool to pull nails with, of course, is a crowbar, wrecking bar. That gives you a nice fulcrum and plenty of leverage to be able to pull them out. If you've got nails that are at an angle, if you pull them at the wrong angle, it'll damage the wood in the trailer more so than if you pull them at the angle that they're in at. They don't do as much damage to the wood in the trailer. With the old nails, one of the reasons that we want to pull nails out is so they're not a tripping hazard, so they don't damage cargo, and to make them a whole lot easier to pull out. Also, if you go to nail something down over the top of that again, it's going to throw that blocking off. The nails could block each other, so you want to be careful about getting them out quickly as possible. So one of the advantages of a bar like this is that you can use the tip of the bar in various different ways to be able to raise that nail up and be able to get it out of there. And again, that leverage of that big bar is really handy. You notice that one went flying when it came out of there? They pretty commonly do that. So you want to have safety glasses on and be guarding against it. Also, don't leave them behind where they're going to puncture somebody's tire. So if you don't have a wrecking bar like this, probably the next best thing is one of these little flat bars, because they have a pretty sharp tip on them. Also, all of you probably have a claw hammer in the truck. If you don't, you really should. It's a pretty essential thing. So a situation like this, we could probably take our claw hammer and tap that little flat bar under that nail that's embedded in there. And now, of course, we don't have nearly as much leverage, so a longer bar is handy for that. But we can get it done, and these little flat bars, a lot of times, you can put your foot on them and be able to use them that way. But they run out of distance between the fulcrum and the nail. So sometimes you can take your hammer and put the head of the hammer underneath the bar and give it a raised fulcrum where you can get the rest of the job done. When you use a hammer to pull a nail, the problem is that the fulcrum pretty far from the nail. Instead of your pry bar being a fulcrum right here next to the nail, your hammer fulcrum goes pretty far away from the nail as soon as the nail comes up more than a half inch or so. So one of the things you can do to combat that is have something to adjust your fulcrum point. And another tool that you happen to have with you is the perfect thing to adjust that fulcrum point. So now if I take that winch bar and put it underneath there, now when I start coming up on that nail, that fulcrum is right next to the nail. There's no way I could have moved that before. And now I can get it out. When I get it to the point where my hammer is touching the trailer again, now I can shift my winch bar where I've got the larger diameter tube up there, and I've got another larger fulcrum that I can get the nail the rest of the way out. So that's a way to multiply the size of even a pretty small hammer like this one and get the job done with that. sometimes depending on the kind of hammer that you have, now I've got a larger framing hammer and it's got a longer handle on it, the head is shaped differently. You might be able to, instead of using your winch bar, if you have a small block of wood, that might be helpful enough. And you want to be careful about your safety. So be cautious about where you are. Notice I fell onto the trailer, not off the trailer. So now we've got another interesting problem that happens sometimes. The head will pop off of those nails. How do we solve that problem? One moment, please. If you have a small vice grip, then you can take that vice grip and you have to adjust it carefully and get it snapped onto that nail pretty tight. And then this is going to be difficult with the hammer, but with a pry bar you can pretty easily go underneath that vice grip and pull that out of there. So another thing that can be a solution to that, and you guys probably aren't likely to have one of these, but it's worth considering, is one of these nippers like this. These are actually designed to do things like that too. They're mainly designed for cutting, but they have a rounded design to the jaw so that you can do some prying with them too. Now you have to be careful because sometimes it'll cut off the object that you're trying to pry out, but they are designed to do jobs like that. That's another thing that you may have available. So in the matter of a few minutes, we pulled quite a few old rusty nails out of the deck of this trailer, and this is only half of what I took out of this trailer. Would have been a whole lot easier to pull those out on the day that they were put in there, or the day that the load was delivered rather. And we showed a lot of different techniques to get the job done, but for my money, a crowbar like this is really the easiest thing to use. And of course everybody should have a hammer of some kind on the truck with you. And a vice grip is a pretty handy tool for a lot of different things, but that secondary use of pulling nails with it is pretty awesome. So for the better of the equipment, the safety of the cargo, and your own safety from not tripping and falling down on the ground, it's best to pull those nails out of the trailer.